Good afternoon, and we're going to be going into our third and last presentation. I pray that you all have been blessed. Are we getting a good picture of our loving God? He's so amazingly giving and merciful and loving. Hopefully, you guys have also seen that there are very practical steps that can be taken to increase. We had nutrition. We also had aeration. Very practical steps that we can take. And hopefully that you guys also saw the spiritual connection. We need to reason upon these lines. And right now our presentation is going to be on hydration. So we had aeration, nutrition, and hydration. And we will, do you remember that I'll reiterate this, we should be firing on all 8 cylinders. There are 8 laws of health, and we are going right down that list. And at the head of every one, if you've noticed, that trust in God is in every single one. If we did not put the focus and the emphasis on God, we would be doing a disservice to ourselves, but to our fellow man, and most of all, to God. So as we move forward in agriculture, we're going to be doing, it's the same format, a small Bible study, seeing what God has to say about hydration, okay? Now, we also saw that how long would we live without air? Not very long. How long would we live without food? Not very long. How long would we live without water? Not very long. So you see that it's all tied together, right? We're to reason these things out. We're to reason from cause to effect. If there's no water, there is no life. Right? 3 states now are going to be planting 25% less food in the fields. I think it's the 3 western states. I'm not exactly sure, but you can look at it. Remember, we want to keep our finger on the pulse, right, of current events, right? Prophecy being fulfilled right before our very eyes. And that will have a trickle-down effect. Now, like I said, we are having some of these things in the grocery stores, but California doesn't plant 25% of their food. You're going to feel it. It's the breadbacks of the United States. So it's a big deal. Arizona was another one. Arizona has actually grown in agriculture quite a bit. So we're going to move on to hydration. We cannot live without water. The interesting thing is, if you don't have water, what happens? Are we tired of that slide or what? It's just, that's what happens, right? That's what happens. So there's a problem. The ground is dehydrated, okay? I think many of us struggle with that as well. Boy, keeping water down in some of the weather we've had, unbelievable. I think a gallon a day was pretty good, but we're up to probably a gallon and a half, 2 gallons. So hydration is a serious thing, and in agriculture, it is massive. Some of I think a friend of mine, I think he was digging his wells 1,000 feet. This was in the valley where the wells. When my grandfather was farming, they had surface water, basically, in the same valley. So it is serious. This is worldwide, by the way. This is one of the, climate change. This is one of the ones that they use for the indicators. There are dead zones in the world. I don't know if you guys know about this. We'll talk about this in a little bit because somebody asked a question. I think we'll answer that question outside. But as far as chemical fertilizers and fungicides, pesticides, all these things that are not healthy, they have declared these as dead zones. So it's serious. They're all over the world, and they are right where Big Agra is. We had frogs. I'll mention this really quick. But in the Bay Area, we lived where just a lot of agriculture, right on the water. But right around that was just heavy pesticide and herbicide usage, and strawberries and blueberries and black. They started getting into blackberries more, but apples were the big push a long time ago. So it's an agriculture area, but they started using so many herbicides, pesticides, and fungicides. They started seeing the animal life change, and not only that. This is how serious it is. It's a little different but the estrogen that they were finding in the water because of the excess that was in the water because everybody's on these things, right, was actually changing the frogs from male to female. And at, I think, not UC Davis, but this male frog was actually on its third batch of eggs. So it's pretty serious what these things can do to animal life. And we are animals, aren't we? We're humans, and we're created in the image of God, but Satan wants to destroy that image, not only spiritually, physically as well. And these are momentous times we're living in. Satan is doing terrible things to our seeds. A few people are trying to control all of the seeds and patent this technology. So we need to do our part of grow our own gardens, right? Raise our own provisions and seeds. We can be saving seeds. But back to this dehydration. Sorry, I got off topic there. But dehydration is serious. We're drawing our aquifers down, and what happens is those pesticides and chemicals do not go away, right? They are residual. It's left over. So what happens is you just keep drawing that down, but they don't go anywhere. So the concentration of these things gets what? Higher, higher, and higher. Now we are the top food predator, right? Or whatever you want to say. How high do you think these concentrations are in us? You know about mercury in a tuna. They are top predators in the ocean. This is in their tissue. And we are even the FDA says pregnant women don't do it. Don't eat tuna, or salmon. So these are serious times we're living in, and dehydration is very important, because how do you get those toxins gone? Right? It's a serious thing. We need water because it cleanses. It cleanses. Water is a cleanser. So we're going to look up some text. We're going to remember, we're reasoning along the spiritual lines, and then we transfer right into the physical or practical. Now this is in Exodus. Please turn with me if you have a Bible. If not, it's up there on the screen. Exodus 17, 2 and 3. Wherefore the people did chide with Moses and said, Give us water, that we may drink. And Moses said unto them, Why chide ye with me? Wherefore do ye tempt the Lord? And the people thirsted there for water. And the people murmured against Moses and said, Wherefore is this that thou hast brought us up out of Egypt, to kill us and our children and our cattle with thirst? Now, isn't this interesting? You know why that picture is the same every time? Is because if we don't have water, we what? We die. Did the children of Israel know that? Now, they shouldn't have been murmuring. God already took them through this Red Sea, but they knew that if they didn't have water, they would die. Now, if our gardens don't have water, the same will happen. It's a serious thing. And if you remember in the strata, the rocks, the gravel, the sand, remember how I mentioned that this is a part of a solution to the water issue. Organic matter is, and living soil is also a part. Do you see how it's all woven together? It's like a hand and a glove. These things, they cannot be pulled apart because they are all together. God made it that way. There's unity, right? Okay, so right there we see that no water equals death. Let's look again. 2 Kings 2:19. And the men made of the city said unto Elisha, Behold, I pray thee, the situation of the city is pleasant, as my Lord seeth. But the water is not, and the ground is barren. No water, no food. That's it. It is automatic. There's no water, no food. Oh, sorry. Now, as we move forward in this, we're talking about problem solution, and it's very important to know that there are some solutions. There's a solution to everything, every single thing. There's a solution to the sin problem, right? The most plaguing problem on mankind. There's a solution, Jesus Christ, the righteous. So we thank him for that. But there's a solution to this water problem. There is, and we're going to look at that. Now, these are some of the tools we're getting into. Now, the problem is lack of water, and we need to find out what's the solution. This is a wood chipper. Now, what was that? Yeah, I don't know. It said that's a very small wood chipper. There's actually electric wood chippers, electric shredders. A friend of ours bought one. He lives right down the way, and it does work. It works well. It is not high volume. But remember, a garden, some of the most productive land right now. Look up market gardening, a quarter-acre market gardening, and you will see they are producing so much food when the soil is healthy. It will boggle your mind. I mean, it is unbelievable. The most productive farmers in the world right now are these market gardeners that have used these practices, right? No pesticides, no fungicides, no herbicides, getting the microbiome of the soil correct and using layering methods, no tilling. So the most productive gardens, and their soil is never without a crop. It's amazing. And some of them you can even look and see how much production comes off of that. I'm talking about weight, or volume. So this is a tool that there's many different scales of this. The one on the left, or I don't know if it's your left. The one on your left, it is a mid-size chipper. That one would do like a 3-inch tree limb, but you do not need that. You do not need to do that. About 1 inch to 2 inches is really what you need to do. The mass that is in that is much more valuable as far as composting than like the trunk, which is mostly carbon. So your carbon to nitrogen ratio in that limb that is about 1 inch is actually, there's higher nitrogen in that limb. So as you shove that limb in, shredded material will just come out, and then you pile that. And as you did see out there, that is 1 year. Now, 1 year of shredded material and of tree limbs. And it just is a tremendous blessing. Now, we started with, what did we start with? Maybe a pile half the size of this room. It composts down, but is really, really nutrient dense. So there's many different ways. Now, you don't necessarily have to have a wood chipper or a shredder to do this. You can go out into the forest and actually source this material. It's there. It's there. It's already broken down. It's broken down in rotted tree trunks. It's there, right? So you don't necessarily have to have these tooling. It just is a benefit, is what it is. So this is the material. this is getting into the solution. The covering, right, is so important for the land. The covering is so important for the land. What would happen to you and I if someone took maybe I won't say that, took our skin off, right? It would be we would get dehydrated really fast. We would not live. The ground needs to be covered, doesn't it? Everywhere you look, the ground is covered except where man is. In the cities, what do you see? Concrete, even in massive fields, you look in some of these massive fields that are tilling. I mean, it's amazing how wide these disc and harrows are. I mean, they're 90 feet long, and they just do massive acreage. But they are exposing the soil, which kills the microbes, right? And therefore, the plants they are not healthy. Therefore, they have to spray the pesticides and the herbicides. So it's a vicious cycle, and it will just keep building and building. And unfortunately, not a lot of people, they're looking at the dollar amount, what they can, get from this. It's sad. You can't blame the farmers necessarily, but it's something we need to come away from. But that will turn into, so then you have compost. That's compost over there. And as you layer, you're going to be building this sponge. That's the way I see it. It's a sponge. It is amazing when you layer. You can stand there with a watering wand forever. It will. Our beds. I mean, you can stand there. I've never even done it actually. Let's do that. Let's test that. Let's just stand there and water. I mean, it's amazing. You water once, just topical, right? It opens the pores. That water disappears. It's amazing. It's a sponge. And the great thing about it is when it rains, it will absorb it, who knows, 1,000 times more, I don't know, but than just soil exposed or rocks exposed. Or Missouri, we have massive runoff, don't we? It's just amazing how fast, that's how flooding occurs. The forest can't handle it because we're being deforested, right? It's a lot of cattle land. I don't blame the cattle farmers, but if you have no trees and no foliage on the land, no covering and no absorption, no capable of absorption, what happens to the land? You have massive erosion. That's why it's so damaging when they do clear cutting, like in California, clear cutting practices. It's just unbelievable the erosion that happens. And then it fills the waterways. And then we have unhealthy ecosystems in our waterways, which is not good. And then the actual chemical pesticides go into our waterways, and then the fish and everything else is damaged by that. So layering is very important, and hydration is extremely, extremely important. And these are some ways. The layering, compost, wood chip, and compost are an excellent way to retain moisture. Retain moisture. Somebody was mentioning to me that, I think it was Stacy, they put wood chip on. The other part of the garden is just dry. But wherever they put wood chip on, underneath is still damp, is still wet. That's a good sign because that means moisture is being retained, right? So, and remember what I did mention, wood chip is very difficult to plant in. Like if you're going to do a carrot seed, how large is a carrot seed? Has anybody planted carrots? I mean, you can barely see these things. And so if you were to do that in wood chip, it would not have a chance to come up. It just wouldn't. The wood chip is too strong. Now, when we did microgreens, there are some plants that are extremely strong. There is so much power in that seed. Sunflowers is one. When we were doing microgreens, you stack a brick on top of your seed starting tray, and those microgreens will lift. You could stand on that and it would lift you up. That's how powerful the seeds are. So there are some seeds that will come up in a little heavier material, but they just get lost in a smaller seed just gets lost in it. Not only that, the nutrient density in that material compared to the compost or compared to the screen wood chip is much less. And then also, which would mean that the microbes are not as close to the seed. They say, this is amazing, microbes travel within a millimeter or a micromillimeter of the actual root zone right there. It is so tight. So you can imagine in this environment, we want those microbes as close as we can to the root zone, because that's where they're working, right? Mycorrhizal fungi or fungi hyphae, which are the kind of tentacles that they send out. These are the roads, and they will get them closer because the plant signals, I want this microbe. It's amazing. And so it signals, and sure enough, there it comes traveling back, and then there's a symbiotic relationship. So, but what that doesn't do in that wood chip, it doesn't allow that process to work as easily. If you see, that microbe has to travel so much farther through this void of space, air, soil. They want water to travel smooth and fast right to the zone that you want. So there's another reason why water is very important. Okay. Yeah. Now this is a retort. This is just becoming, it's old technology using a high carbon in agriculture is I think the Incas, maybe the Aztecs also did it, but it was done all over the world. Actually, in the United States, not necessarily charcoal, but it could be leftover charcoal remains. But a lot of people would dump their wood ash in their gardens. And nothing wrong with that. Put it in your compost pile. It's good. But this is a little different than wood ash, quite a bit different. This is a carbon. Wood ash is the process beyond this. Now, this is pyrolysis is the name for this process. And what it does is, I will demonstrate this out there, but you have this burning of everything but the carbon. So you can think of it as like, if I had this water bottle, and it's a shell. Now, there's a lot of water in there, but the fire came and burnt that water, made it steam, right? And it's gone. What's left? Just the water bottle. It's the housing for the water. So it's the same thing in biochar. Everything, absolutely everything is gone, pretty much. I mean, like 99%, except carbon. Now, the good thing about that is this is where fungus thrive, in a carbon-dense or carbon-rich environment. So this biochar, it absorbs water like you can't believe. It also is a house for the microorganisms. It is amazing. It's like a little city of microorganisms. Now that is because there's a bunch of pores. How many people have activated charcoal in their home? Okay, this is something we all need to have. And it is basically the same thing. This isn't activated to the level that your activated charcoal at home would be, but when you add the water, steam, and the pores are opened. And so what happens is, all these pores are little tunnels, and they're carbon tunnels, right? It's amazing. Not only that, carbon is a great absorber. That's why we ingest it, right? If we have a stomach flu or something like that, we take it, and it's amazing what it does. So it's a chelator. So it wants to draw like crazy. So the beautiful thing about this biochar in the soil is it draws the microorganisms, right? It also draws water to it. It will release water as well, but in a very slow, and nutrients as well. You're not supposed to take charcoal all the time, right? Because you can actually be taking minerals out of your body. So this is the same thing. Now this happened in a very interesting situation. My daughter Vivian, she has a little garden, And she has some squash plants. And she said, boy, this biochar is great stuff, which it is. But inoculated, it needs to be inoculated. It needs to be moistened as well with water. She went and put it right beside her squash plants, and boom, it sucked everything away from the root zone, and those plants turned yellow. Now, does that mean the biochar is bad? No, the application, something happened to the application. But it was good because we learned a lesson, right, V? We learned a lesson. And how the absorptive power of biochar is unbelievable. So there's one other thing it does. It's a chelator, and it will grab onto other things, bad things. And there are some amazing microorganisms. Somebody mentioned this. I think it was Kevin. But microorganisms, God made some microorganisms to be specialists. Now, there are microorganisms that deal with all kinds of damaging things for us, especially in the petrochemical realm. They are specialists. It's unbelievable. So, I have a theory. I don't know if it's correct. But if God said, he saw that Satan was going to destroy the crops and destroy the land, and he saw that maybe man was complicit in that, but he said, we're going to have a solution for this. We're reasoning from problem to solution. Is it a coincidence that there's a chelator that you can put into the soil that microorganisms live in that deal with toxins? That cannot be a coincidence, right? It's just unbelievable when you think about how God has made a way of escape. But we're gonna. This retort can be done. Okay, it might seem kind of a little overwhelming, but we're gonna walk through that process out in the patio, and I'll show you how simply it can be done. And many people are saying this is a game changer, right, for the backyard gardener. I don't like, that term. It kind of bounces around in it, but it really is true. Compost tea and biochar are things that can be done on a very simple, low budget, very practical. The time is very minimal for the profitability, right? For the bang for the buck, So as you look at this a little bit, we'll look at this a little bit further. But I just want to show that these things really do work. God is good, and He supplied us with these tools to use, and if you decide to use some of them, you will see tremendous blessings. This right here is those same beds that we started. Those are a variety that will probably get up to 1 or 2 pounds, and these will grow at least this year, probably about 20 feet. Is what I'm guessing. There's other varieties that will grow easily 25. So these are 1 to 2 pound tomatoes, and there's probably 8 per plant, and they're about 5 feet tall. So this is a chocolate or a black cherry. It's unbelievable, the production, and God is good. These things, and He builds. And you can look at these things and say, praise the Lord, which every time. But do you know it's going to get better? It's going to get better and better. And this is just another. You can kind of see how we're trellising. This is a lower and lean. So if any of you have greenhouses, think about doing this. This is vertical gardening. So what we do is we trellis just on what are those tomahawks? What are they? $1.50? Yeah. I think they're $1.50 tomahawk, and you have the little clips, and you just keep going, and the sky is the limit, really, in certain environments. So there's another variety. Okay, now we're on to friend or foe. I did want to mention, I think we missed a slide there, but we want to focus in on that the water of life. We can do nothing without Jesus Christ. He is our strength, our refuge, and our shield. So when you look at this water issue, there are many places in the United States that are suffering from lack of water right now. We need to put it to prayer. And if you are, have water issues on your land, some people don't have wells. We know several people that rely on rainwater. And when you get to that point, you really realize, third world countries, rainwater is all they have, And so you really get to that point, you really know you need to rely on God. That's where we need to be right now. Full reliance on God. Full reliance. So we're moving on to friend foe. Who remembers the last one? Yeah. Assassin bug. Boy, that was a scary one, wasn't it? But we saw that there was a benefit. God has a police force, right, to protect. And we need to be a little cautious about what we do in the garden. Sarah, one thing. We have these little toads that are everywhere. Does anybody else have them? They're amazing little things. But, I get so sad because we're driving vehicles and whatever else, and they're out there. We need to take some of those things into consideration. It's not that you're going to dodge every toad, but, say a prayer. Thank you, Lord, for these wonderful animals that you've blessed us with. We see your fingerprint, and we need to ask for that they have protection. We do it with the deer on the road and the turtles, and, because they need protection too. So, but these insects are very, very important to the ecosystem that God has placed in the garden. And we should not be spraying pesticides all over the garden because it is a shotgun approach, right? At least, which I don't recommend pesticides in no way. But don't you think it should be more of a sniper approach? If you really wanted to move forward, it really should be more specific, right? We should not take out everything. So here's the next one. Let's see if anybody recognizes it. Oh, everybody recognizes that one. And I can't stand those things. No. No. How many people know what this is? It's a wasp, isn't it? How many people enjoy wasp? No, nobody enjoys a wasp. But God does. He made that wasp, and he made it for a purpose. He probably didn't make it to want to sting you, but to protect its nest or to, Now, is that a good or bad bug? I think pretty much that was a resounding bad. But let's look at it now. That's it. Now, that's not the best. I couldn't find a better picture. We did do a test with this as well. And do you see that leaf? Here's a hint. Do you see that leaf? What's that leaf look like up there? It's eaten, isn't it? It's eaten. You know that wasp was eating the caterpillar that ate that leaf. I have seen paper wasps, carry hornworms away. So we have to be careful about this friend or foe issue. Most people would call this a foe. And I'll have to say they do not live around my home, right? Like in my door, they don't live there. But they do live in the garden. And I leave them wherever they are supposed to be. And we really should. Devin and I, it's a little gruesome, but to test, we took a hornworm and done. Gone. Not only that, this year I mentioned the aphid issue. What took care of the aphids? Does anybody remember? Now it was a lacewing. Good. The lacewing's just devastated. It was over. And we were praying about it. It was pretty serious. I knew those plants going in that late were going to suffer. The aphids know it. They know that that plant is weak. And so, so we saw that lacewings dealt with that. We saw that an assassin bug dealt with a Japanese beetle, or that wasn't a Japanese beetle, but, these are bugs that are bad. They will decimate your garden. Now you see that this one is devouring a caterpillar. It's almost gone. But Devin and I put that caterpillar up there, and it was gone. You couldn't be there. But I had a pretty bad, we have asparagus bed. And does anybody have asparagus? Okay, what do you have when you have asparagus? I mean, it's kind of an automatic. What do you battle as far as pests? Asparagus beetle, right? It's a little larval grub that basically devours from the top down, and it will just keep going. And then what happens if you don't throw that and burn that slash, they will just keep going. And next year you'll have a worse problem, the next year you'll have a worse problem. But I love observation in the garden. It's amazing. I observed paper wasps, just like this one, destroying the larval stage. I mean, it was like, they just take them and carry them away. So there you are picking these things, and then you're killing the thing that does the picking for you. And so we have to be careful about this. And I don't know if many of you have dealt with these things, like which is good and which is bad. I don't know, It would be a good thing to research before we kill, or at least research to see good and bad, right? And we don't want to take anything out that is actually helping us. Because do we need help? We need help. So, okay, we're going to go. There's our closing verse. Now, this is a powerful one because it kind of brings it all together. Blessed is the man that trusteth in the Lord. Now, where did we see that in our beginning slide? Right? It's the 8th law of health, New Start. Trust in God. There it is. Can you be a successful missionary without trusting in God? Now, I might take it a stretch further, and I don't know that you can really be a successful farmer without trusting in God. You might be a farmer, but a successful one as far as linking what God has done with his mission for humanity and agriculture as being part of the final work. We need to trust in God. And it says, and whose hope the Lord is. I really like that. For he shall be as a tree planted by the waters. Did we deal with waters? We did. How important it is for us to have life-giving water. How important it is for our plants to have life. Water. Water is life. And that spreadeth out her roots by the river, and shall not see when the heat cometh, but her leaf shall be green. Now, what does that indicate? If the leaf is green, and she doesn't even, cringe, right? What does that indicate? Hydration and nutrition, right? That in fact, it also indicates, and it says, the spreadeth her roots. What does that also indicate? Nutrition, but it also says that fallow ground must be broken up because those roots are spreading. So, because they're spreading by the river, which is the water. So, and shall not see when the heat cometh, but her leaf shall be green, and shall not be careful in the year of drought. Is the year of drought coming? It's coming. The question is, are we ready? God has a solution. We can be ready. Spiritually, number one, we need to be fully dependent on God. And then it says, neither shall cease, now this is very important to this, how we're closing, from yielding fruit. Is it important for God's people to yield fruit? Is it important for your garden to yield fruit? Can the garden can we work in the garden to bear fruit? Yes, we can, especially in these final days. As we move forward in the garden and along these lines, as far as yielding fruit, we are going to see how important it is when people cannot buy food. They cannot have healthy food. Very few companies control all the food in the United States. It only takes, we're at a tipping point right now. What if you could provide, by God's grace, the three things that we just studied, by God's grace, for somebody else? You think that would soften the heart? It would soften the heart tremendously. Now we know why the entering wedge is the health work, because it softens the heart. When you bow down, at the feet of your fellow man to wash their feet, right? Or when you take care of a need, like food or water. Now, as a Christian, as a Seventh-day Adventist Christian, we know what will be provided for us, without a doubt. This is something we can have complete faith in. Without a doubt, our bread and water will be sure. So, what is the garden really for then? If our bread and water will be sure, this is a ministering tool that we have been given by God to take the gospel to the world. This is what it is. Now, it's just a tool. God's tool house is, his tool shed is what? It's massive, right? But we are told to move to the country and raise our own provisions. That is not a selfish act. It is based in ministry. If we turn it into a selfish act, where I just want to consume what I grow and there's a benefit in it, there is a benefit. We can be healthier. But if we dare separate it from the final work, we're in trouble. We are in trouble. So it's a wonderful, I love that text because it inculcates all of what we've studied, especially trust in God. So we're going to go out and we're going to now walk through a retort. Now, like I said, some people might be kind of overwhelmed by it, but it really is if you've done a bonfire and you like to sit by a bonfire, you can do this. So in fact, a bonfire in many different parts of the world, they make a bonfire, then they cover it with soil, and that will slow the process down, right? Because anyways, I'll explain that. But you can do it that way. We'll talk about that too out there. All right, as you saw, you have those wood chips. Remember I mentioned that those trees, that's a great place to get that wood chip, right? But it's also a good place to get wood. This is found everywhere. I think I was mentioning to somebody that we always drive over them with the mower, and it really oh man, again, But it's a great place. Now, these can be broken up by hand by this time. So it's not really a labor-intensive. The children and I and Anna just go out and we fill up a wheelbarrow relatively fast with, now it might be a single person, and it'll go a little slower. But if you fill up a wheelbarrow with broken sticks, you'll just snap these, or you can get loppers. Or you can, we have a little tiny chainsaw. I don't know if you guys have one of those, but it cuts it up really fast. But loppers are a good idea, for something about that size. But you can put, anything like this. Now, I would not recommend at the scale that you would be doing this. Rather, this is a micro. My boy Devin made this one. It's a miniature of that. And it works. And we probably don't have the time. But he did it, and it went just fine. But that's a little bigger, and you can tell that's a chainsaw. So that's a little bit labor intensive. But if you like to use your chainsaw, and I don't know that it's necessarily cost effective when you can just go get this. But this sure makes good biochar. And you can see, this is breaking apart in here, but that's what you want. It's kind of a cross section. So you can see that this is just completely burned all the way through. Now it's a burn that starts from the top down. Now I'm going to show you in this version. Let's see. Oh, not in there. Okay, so you have a 30-gallon drum. Okay, this represents a 30. You can see the large version right there. A 30-gallon drum, a 50-gallon drum, 55, and one more 55. Okay, so this costs about maybe $45 right now, something like that. And Devin and I did this in like 40 minutes. So it's, I mean, very, very profitable. I mean, as far as time and expense. So what you do is you make an adapter. I'm going to move down there. That way I can show you on the big one. But if we want to fire that one up, Devin tested that one, and that one takes 15 minutes. Here's the finished product. And like I said, you'll get between 5 and 10 gallons on a retort about this size. So now if you go online, you're going to see a lot of different styles, and that's perfectly fine. But this is the one that I saw. This is not my own idea, but this is the one that I saw that really made sense to me. That was very, very, because what I like to do is find things that are very easily accessible. As you saw, most of those things we could source on our own land, right? But then they're kind of for the do-it-yourselfer. You're able to do it, right? So this is that second, right? The second. Now this is just this. Can you see the little adapter ring there? So all you do is you cut here, right? So now Devin did his with wood chip, which worked really good in there. And anyways, so what you'll need, Sawzall. Does everybody know what a Sawzall is? Yeah, or a jigsaw you could use. A drill. It's kind of an old drill, but any drill will work. Channel locks, because you'll be bending these. A grinder, because you'll grind these. Now I know this might seem for some a little daunting, but it's doable. You might even have somebody that's a little handy do this for you. You know, it's very okay. And these are very important. These you will see. I don't know if you've ever seen a rocket stove, but they get rocket hot. Like that's how this works. Now what you're going to do is you're going to load this up with that material. With that material. You just load it, just stack it all the way up, right? Kind of heaping even. This fire is going to burn from the top down. That's what's important. It's really important. It is not, you don't light that fire underneath and just this isn't that kind of fire. It's very important that the moisture and everything else, whether it be minerals or anything else, is burnt off, right? And you're left with just the carbon. So it's amazing because, now you'll drill holes in the bottom. This is air. Air will come in the bottom. You use bricks or whatever, it could be stones, and you build it up so it gets a little air. You don't want a lot of air. You want this thing to just kind of work its way down through the fire, work its way down. And as it's doing that, it's passing by the stuff that was burnt. The biochar is left. It does not make ash. If you burn this correctly, very, very little ash is left over. It's really interesting. I thought first time I did, I said, it's probably going to turn, actually maybe, Devin, we did do one, didn't we, that there was a little more ash because we burnt a little too long. So now we're to the point where there's barely any ash. In fact, sometimes there's none. So you'll stack this. Is that a fine-tuning process, drilling the correct number of holes? No. Drill the holes. I'll show you again. Somewhat symmetrical. Doesn't have to be anything special. So just getting a little getting air. Sorry. You could go 1/2 inch, 3/8. I would probably go about 1/2 inch. That's what that is there. Okay. So you're gonna start the fire from the top. Now you can use anything to start that fire on the top, but remember it's top down. So you can use cardboard. You can use really anything, and then you're gonna move that fire around a little bit, so you get this nice even burn down. So it's kind of like being by it's like being by a bonfire, right, or a fire pit, but you move that around.
Real quick, the paper that you're burning, the starting your fire, you have it on the top.
Yeah, here it is. Devin here's some matches. He'll do he could do that one right now. Just some paper, and just light it, just like you'd light a campfire or something like that. Maybe some bark or something you could do. Now, fascinating thing is, if you do a real good burn, this is amazing. If you do a real good burn, this will be carbon. A piece of paper will still be down there, thin. I couldn't even believe it when I said a piece of cardboard will be total carbon. You can break it just like glass. And it's amazing. I never, you think of just a fire raging and this thing will go, but then you're going to go with your adapter. Now this adapter is real easy. It's not difficult. This is obviously is folded in, right? Because it's just the top, right? You can drill a hole and you can use a Sawzall and just zip those things out. And all you got to do is bend them back to the size that will mate to this. Okay, so a 55-gallon drum or 30-gallon drum, and it will just slide over that. You don't want to go beyond it. You want to stay within it. And then, so here's this is one of the most important things here. This one you're going to measure back, right? And what's nice about it is right about here, so you can be really uniform about this. You're going to make your cuts. And then it's just every other one you bend with the channel locks, right? In, out, in, out, in, out. And you just work your way around, and you just made yourself an adapter ring, right? So this, you might want earplugs. No. So this adapter ring, right at this point, it's an interesting thing because it will start to draw. Just with this much elevation, this becomes a chimney, right? But you step it up and you put, now this is the same thing, right? You make your cut, you drill your hole. You can use a grinder, you don't need to drill a hole as well. But I like the jigsaw, it's a little more controllable. So if you have a jigsaw, it works really well. So, and you just make a pie, but you can freehand that. It doesn't have to be anything special. So what you'll do is you'll make that cut. It's the same exact process as that. That thing will be going, right? And I don't have my gloves on necessarily for this part, but it probably is. It's going. It's not super hot, but the second you put this thing on, right? It turns into a rocket stove. It just gets ripping. And so as that process goes, now we have at this size, we've stacked it with material like this. This is a little small because he has a very small scale. We've stacked it totally full. It has almost every time, besides the first times we were testing and it turned to ash a little bit more. We did get biochar still. Almost every time, 1 hour and 10 minutes, like clockwork, and we get a thorough burn all the way through. Now, if there's a partial burn, it's not the end of the world. Like if you have a section, a piece of wood, and it's still woody, that means that you didn't have a thorough burn, and so run it a little longer. But if you use material like that, we have burned now. You'll see we're going to give each of you a gallon of biochar if you want it. But it was just like clockwork. It's so fast. And it's it's wonderful because it's like gold, especially, remember, you need to inoculate it. You need to, do those things. But it's just such good for what you do and the effort that you put into it. You walk away for an hour and 10 minutes. You might just go work in the garden. You might do something else. And you come back. Okay, now when that time comes, hour and 10, hour and 20, hour and 10 is what we've been so consistent on. You are gonna, now I have done this with a watering can, so you can do this part with a watering can, but I'm realizing the more water the better, because you can make steam that much faster. And it's that steam process that you make the activated charcoal. Right, all the pores just open up even more when you see this steam come out. Now, I use a wand just because there's steam, right? It's hot in there. But remember, you're down to, now at this point, you're down to this much, right? Like I said, 5 to 10 gallons, right? You're like right around here. So it's down there. The fire is not around you at this time, but it's still burning. But you don't want it to burn right now at this point. So what I do, because the pyrolysis is over, it has burned everything. You'll even see that the flame, it's clean burning. It will be a little smoky at first, but it will get cleaner and cleaner. So, and at the right temperature is very clean burning. Some people are putting reburners in, which I think in California, we dipped down in our orchard. We had an inversion layer in the valley, and we would dip down. So I used, what do they call it? Smudge pots. Anybody know what a smudge pot is? So smudge pots, they used to burn motor oil. I didn't burn motor oil or diesel fuel. Diesel fuel is too expensive now. But I had, what do we have? 30 smudge pots in the orchard. And these things, I'd go outside, or what time did I go? Like 2 o'clock in the morning, like here comes the frost, it's coming, and you have all your blossoms on, right? And this creates a draw. That's all you want. So hot air. So what I used is waste vegetable oil, and those things were great. So you just go to the local, restaurant, and you get their waste vegetable oil. But they had a reburner on them, and that's just a tube that comes off the side. So a lot of people are building these now with reburners, which I actually think that might be a good idea, especially with, the environmental, we know we want to be good stewards, but you don't have to. And right now it's working really well. So, but so what you do, you need gloves like this. This can be any place that has welding supplies. These are very easy to be, they're not that expensive either, but you need to have for this process because this is hot. So, yeah, it's hot. So you'll grab this and just take this off, just like that. It's that easy. And you'll set this aside, right? It's still burning. You'll just grab this, set this aside. Okay, now I like to have another person with me, but I've done it also with nobody. But at this point, you are going to drench that. You have to stop the fire. The faster you stop the fire, the more biochar you will have. Because at this time it just got a bunch of what? Oxygen. And oxygen, fire needs fuel, right? Fire needs fuel and oxygen. So at this point, you want to stop that fire because it's going to turn to ash now. That's what's going to happen. So boom, the second you hit that, it will just go with steam. It's not going to kill you, but steam will come out, and you just cool it down, right? Then I have my wheelbarrow. Now not everybody will be able to do this, so I've done it several different ways. People that aren't able to lift this, right? We wouldn't want you to get injured or anything, but I will lift this up. Another thing that I like, I'll show you another way to do this, and you don't have to do the water, but I do believe the watering process is actually actually helps. So this right here, I just pick this up and I dump it in a wheelbarrow. And then do you remember the shredder that we have? I run it right through there, and you can screen it down to the right size. It's really nice. So that right there is that process. You can stomp on it. You can drive your car on it. You can get it down, but you want to get it down because you can put this stuff on. We put it in our starts at very fine. We ran it through our trommel at, 1/8 of an inch. So we got it very fine. Like I said, the best starts, tomato starts I've ever grown. So, and that's with the compost tea. So it's a real good thing. So here's another way that you can do this if you don't, which is very nice because in the forest, we had 200 trees blow down on our property. 200 or more. Now, at first that was a real bummer, but we saw how God blessed. He blessed us with a sawmill, so now we're going to build structures. So God is good. But we were sad, right? We were sad about that. But guess how much biochar you can make with those trees? So we can mill it up and everything else, all those limbs, and it just starts that process that much faster for that. You can even, have you ever heard of chop and drop? So you grow a cover crop and you just chop it right there. Comfrey is a real good one. So if you're growing a tree, you just chop that comfrey and you mulch right there, and it grows again. Chop it again, grow it. You just mulched and you didn't do very much, right? It was real. Not only that, you have the benefits of comfrey. So another way to do this, if you're in the forest and you don't have access, or if you don't want to do the water, right? You don't like that steam cloud or whatever. What you do, still have your gloves on, and what you do is I'm violating my glove print thing. But you put this in an area that is kind of more sandy, right? Or maybe you even put a pile of sand, or maybe do you know how you can get a masonry product, like a masonry siding? Have you ever seen like a hardy siding or something like that? That's a real good thing to use for this. But what it does is it smothers that fire. So what you do is here you have your sand or masonry siding. You just rotate this off. You just closed all the holes in the bottom. This comes with the barrel. Put this on, walk away. The fire will be smothered out. Now, the reason why I say this is the better way is because I really believe it opens the pores much more when you have the steam process, right? But not only that, you stop the fire that much faster. This still will kind of go, not long at all, but you are losing some of what you want. So, anyways, that's the benefits. Is there any questions? Any questions about this? It's a little more intense as far as, but
I think I've seen a documentary someone do this on a really large scale.
massive. They're going big. There are, just like compost tea. I mean, we're talking millions and millions and millions of dollars. There are big agras getting into this, and now I don't, who's going to take it up? I don't necessarily know. It might just smother right out. But I am encouraged that people are looking into alternatives, even in big agra, right? They're looking to some. There's some guys using compost tea on just massive scales, And so these things they're starting to be a little more mainstream, and I'm encouraged by that. But they are very alternative thinking farmers, very, very alternative, So.
Is there some way you can capture the heat and use it?
Well, this is what I like. We didn't get to do it last year, but this right here is like the perfect job in the winter for the family or for whatever. You go out if you want to limb up the forest and get it cleaned up, or a trail. I mean, it's freezing cold out, right? Like what, -5 or -7 we got last year, right? You come up and warm up beside this, and it's a great. Now I don't know how to reuse some of that energy, other than that, but I'm sure there's actually I won't say that. There's actually a man that is doing it on a very large scale. I can't remember his name. He has a commercial retort, and they get from a sawmill. They get all their material, but I believe he has some kind of a boiler or something set up in that system. You couldn't do that with this necessarily, but in his system, he does use that energy again. This is real common now because people are real concerned about energy usage, which is a good thing, Okay, any other questions?
You said an hour and 10 minutes is how has it's been burning for you, but does that depend on the type of wood and how green the wood is?
It has not. Green, I would, okay. The good thing about the wood chip, if you do have access to a wood chipper, and trees are dying here on a crazy level, right? It might be, to me, it's concerning. That means that your forests aren't necessarily healthy. You can see dead trees all over, right? So there is access to dry materials almost everywhere. So I would definitely not use green material in this. The burn would just be too long. And to gauge the quality of material, because it's about the quality, to gauge that is kind of challenging. We did it, we tried it, and dry material to green, no, there's no.
So the quality is good when it's down to about that bottom green.
Yeah, about there. Yep.
So if you open up the top and it's too high, you probably just close it back.
Close it back up, it'll start again. And, but like I said, all you have, those limbs right there are dead. They're dry. If that fell right now, you could break that up right in here and burn it, and it would be fine. And that's everywhere, right? If you have, I could probably go, to these trees right here and probably get maybe 3 burns out of those. You can do a lot, So, and I'm planning to do it on this gentleman has a question. I'm planning to do it because our forests are not healthy. Our forest, I'm planning to do it on a massive scale. And I'm going to inoculate our forests as well and get them back, and especially along our trails, because the forests are not healthy. They have been too compacted. Ours was logged pretty heavily a while back, but it still hasn't come back, and the health just is not there. So, okay, go ahead.
How do you make use of this end product in your garden?
Yeah, okay. That, if you see up there, with your starts, you can use it as basically a house for the microorganism with your start, and a nutrient. It absorbs nutrients. So that's what's nice about it. So it's right around the root zone. So when you do your starter mix for your starts in your garden, okay, another good place is if you do the compost tea and you mix this, or water, you can do water as well, but you can do it right around the root zone when you plant anything. You can also do it in a furrow. That's what they're doing on a larger scale. They're actually inoculating this and actually using its heavy equipment, which is compaction, which is not good, but they are actually doing a furrow, and then they plant, and the yields will blow your mind. It's just unbelievable. So anyways, that's the way. Now for me, I'm going to be doing it in 2 different ways. A larger form, which I will use it in the larger size, and I screen it down. And I will do a dusting right on that. If you look at that stratification in that fish tank, the different layers, if you do a dusting right in that compost layer, before or after, you've just made housing. Like it's like you just built a housing development the size of the United States for microorganisms. So that's what I would say. The dusting, the larger, the smaller, you can do a dusting. And then what you can do, which is a good way, if you do composting, just take this and put it in the compost pile. You don't necessarily have to inoculate it with the compost tea. You let the compost pile inoculate it, and then when you get that compost out, this will stay in the soil for a long, long time. How long do you see burned trees in the forest? They sit there forever. They do not break down, right? It's pure carbon. So what's nice about it is it's actually in the soil for a very, very long time. And it holds its place in the soil column. That's what's good about it, right? Therefore, that housing development there is there for a long, long time. And that's what you want, right? And therefore, your plants have access to nutrients that have been absorbed in that, but they also, the microorganisms are right there for when the plant calls for that specific organism to supply what it needs. That's that symbiotic relationship, right? Okay, we're gonna have to, okay.
It seems to me I've seen too, like some commercial farmers maybe using a biochar in a liquid form. Is
Yeah.
it in a liquid form?
I don't know about that. I do know that
Mistaken,
you can put this right into that compost tea. That would be pretty much a liquid form. So now whether they spray it, I don't know. But I have basically put it directly in. Okay, let's have a word of prayer. Dear Heavenly Father, I ask that you would be with us. And as we move forward with these tools that really are a blessing, and we thank you for them, I ask, even though these things may seem daunting and maybe not even doable, we know they are through your strength, and we know you want what's best for us. You want what's best for our gardens. You want what's best for the ecosystem. You want what's best for the microorganisms. So help us to think along those lines, what is best, but not for ourselves, for you and for others. And we ask this. We also ask, we thank you that the AC air conditioners are working. What a blessing. We thank you for providing those. And we also thank you for each individual here. We thank you that the Sabbath is almost upon us. Help us to be ready. And dear Lord, soften our hearts to receive the truth as we move forward now in the Sabbath hours. I thank you for each individual here. Dear Lord, let them have been blessed and draw closer to you and trust in you most of all. We ask this in the name of Jesus. Amen.